Hi guys, this is your tita in China, and today we're going to talk about how to be a Filipino English teacher in China. This is part 2 of my how to get a non-tourist Chinese visa. It's one that I have published last week, and if you haven't checked that out yet, it's up here, and it gives you an overview of the business visa, the family visa or the spouse visa, the student visa, as well as the Z visa. But in that last video, I promised you that this week I'm going to talk to you about specific requirements that you will need if you want to teach English in China and you're a Filipino. So this is that video. Anyway, if you're new here, my name is Emmeline and I am your tita in China. I am right now based in Hangzhou, China, but I have been here for almost 5 years, and before coming to Hangzhou, I lived in Shenzhen. Today we're going to talk about the different requirements for Filipinos who want to work as English teachers in China, as well as what to expect and what to prepare for before you come to China. So before we move on with the video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet, and ring the bell so that you will know the next time your tita in China will upload a new video. I upload skincare videos every Sunday and living in China or China related videos every Wednesday or Friday, or both. It depends on how much time I have to make videos that week. I'm pretty sure this is going to be a very long video and it's going to be information overload. So grab your notes and make yourself a drink, and let's get started. If you want to teach English or any other subject in China, the first thing that you need to have is a bachelor's degree, which is a minimum of 4 years. I know there are a lot of people out there who are able to finish a 4-year degree course in just 3 years, and if that's you, no need to worry, your bachelor's degree will still be accepted. Unfortunately, diploma degrees or associate degrees are not accepted here in China if you are planning to apply as a teacher. On top of that, as of 2019, English majors and English-related majors like linguistics or communications, for example, as well as education majors are prioritized when it comes to applying to be a teacher here in China. However, degree holders of other courses or other programs can still apply. We're going to talk about that later on in this video. You also need a minimum of a 120-hour TESOL or TEFL certificate. Choosing between a TESOL and a TEFL really is up to you. However, there are some companies or there are some schools who will prefer one over the other. So if you're really targeting a specific company or a specific school and you don't want anything else, then you have to check first what kind of English certification they require. However, whether you have a TESOL or a TEFL, you will still definitely be able to apply for a job in China, and there will be a job waiting for you. Next, you're going to need a certificate of employment, which indicates that you have taught or you have worked as a teacher for at least 2 years. You can have more than one certificate of employment as long as all of those will indicate that you have worked for 24 months minimum as a teacher. So for example, if you worked at company A for 6 months, company B for 8 months, and company C for a year and a half, you can get a certificate from each of those employers indicating what your position was and how long you worked there, and as long as it all tallies up to 24 months, you're all good. And this includes online and offline teaching. However, there are some schools here in China who will only accept teachers with actual face-to-face or offline teaching experience. So while teaching online is fine as teaching experience, it would still be better for you and you will increase your chances of getting hired if you're actually going to get an offline or a face-to-face teaching experience. If you're a licensed teacher, then your PRC ID will also be required. Next, you will need NBI clearance with no criminal record. And finally, this is optional and really depends on the company, is a medical certificate. There are some companies who will not require a medical certificate from you, and there are some companies who will. So it's really up to the company if they want to require this from you. However, if they don't require it from you, don't be surprised. And also, don't be surprised if you will be asked to get a medical certificate when you're already in China. Okay, so before we move on, let's review all of the requirements first. You will need a bachelor's degree at least 4 years in an English or English-related course, or you can also be an education major. You will also need minimum 120-hour TESOL or TEFL certificate. If you're a licensed teacher, then your PRC ID will also be required. Next, you will need 2 years of relevant work experience. Next, you will need an NBI, and optional, you will need a medical certificate. If you have all of these requirements, you can take the next step, and that is to find an employer in China. To do this, the easiest way is to just look online. There are a lot of job offers and listings online, and I'm pretty sure that if you have all of these basic requirements down, it's going to be very easy for you to find an employer. So if you already found your employer, the next thing that you need to do is to get all of your documents authenticated and certified. For your diploma and your TOR, the first thing that you need to do is to get it CAV, and that is certification, authentication, and verification. It's an official process that ensures that all of your academic documents are legitimate. So most likely your registrar will know what the process is and how to get the process started. So that's the first thing that you need to do. Check with your school registrar. After you get the CAV, the next thing that you need to do is to get the apostille stamps or seals in the Department of Foreign Affairs or the DFA. And this is what we used to call red ribbon, but now it's called apostilling. So you get an apostille stamp or an apostille seal, and that's going to authenticate your documents. Lastly, you're going to authenticate or legalize your diploma and your TOR at the Chinese embassy. So there are three processes for your diploma and your TOR, and that is to get it CAV. The next is to get it authenticated at the DFA, and lastly, you're going to get it legalized at the Chinese embassy. For your TESOL certificate, your medical certificate, NBI clearance, as well as your certificate of employment, instead of doing a CAV, you're going to get a CANA, which is a certificate of notarial act. The CANA is a certificate that you will get at your RTC or regional trial court, and the first step to getting that is to go to a notary public to get an affidavit for CANA purposes. So each of those documents will require one affidavit for CANA purposes. So your TESOL or TEFL certificate is one affidavit, your medical clearance is one, your NBI clearance is one, and your certificate of employment is also another affidavit. After you get all of those affidavits, you're going to go to your RTC and submit all of your documents. You will also need to pay a fee for that, but of course it varies from city to city. After you submit your documents and pay the fee, they're going to give you a release date, and all you have to do is to go back on your release date and get your CANA for all of those documents. Once you get your CANA for your TESOL or your TEFL certificate, your NBI clearance, your medical clearance, as well as your employment certificate, you can now go to the DFA and have all of those documents authenticated. After the DFA apostilles all of those documents, you can now take them to the Chinese embassy for authentication or legalization. So as a recap, for your TESOL or your TEFL certificate, your medical clearance, your NBI clearance, and your certificate of employment, all of these will also undergo three processes, and it starts with getting a CANA for all of these documents. After you get the CANA for all of your documents, you're going to submit it to the DFA for authentication or apostilling. And after that, you're going to take your documents to the Chinese embassy for authentication or legalization. After you get all of your documents back from the Chinese embassy, the next thing that you need to do is to send them to your employer. When they receive your work permit, they're going to send it to you along with an invitation letter, the company registration documents, as well as their permit to hire foreigners. Once you receive those documents from your employer, all you need to do is to bring those plus your personal documents, you know, the diploma, the clearances, and your certificates, plus your passport, your application form, as well as pictures. You're going to bring all of that to the Chinese embassy so that you can now apply for your Z visa. If there are no problems with your visa, then all you have to do is to go back and claim your passport after 4 days. So before we move on with the realities about teaching in China if you're a Filipino, let's do a grand recap. For your diploma and your TOR, you need to have it CAV and then authenticated at the DFA and also legalized or authenticated at the Chinese embassy. For your TESOL or TEFL certificate, your PRC ID, your NBI clearance, medical clearance, and employment certificate, you need a CANA for all of these documents, and then you're going to get them authenticated at the DFA and authenticated or legalized at the Chinese embassy. Submit all of that to your employer, and then you're going to get a work permit, a permit to hire foreigners, and an invitation letter and company registration documents from your employer. You take both your personal documents and the employer documents to the embassy together with your passport, application form, and pictures. The standard processing fee for the Z visa is 1,400 pesos as of October 2019, and it takes 4 days to process. The next few things I'm going to say are factual, no BS information about teaching in China if you're a Filipino. Fact number 1, most likely Filipinos will not get hired in first-tier cities or in big cities in general. And I say most likely because there are some Filipinos who are actually working in first-tier cities or in big cities with no problems. However, these people usually also have higher qualifications. But first, let me clarify what first-tier city means. First-tier cities are the biggest, richest, and most politically influential cities in China. And there are 4 of those cities in China, namely Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Chongqing. In the 4 first-tier cities, as well as the big cities like Xi'an and Hangzhou, Filipinos will have a really hard time finding an English teaching job or a teaching job in general because they're very, very strict when it comes to our qualifications. And generally, they prefer native English speakers over non-native English speakers. As a matter of fact, I asked 2 of my recruiter friends how Filipinos can get jobs in big cities and if it's stricter in big cities than in smaller cities. And one of them said, I would say yes, because it's stricter with foreign teachers in big cities nowadays. Work visa is a big issue. Another one said, I don't think a lot of schools in big cities will be able to get a permit to hire a non-native even if they are white. It's not really about skin color. That's an issue before, but recent events is different because the government changed the rule and identified US, UK, Australia, Canada, South Africa, and Ireland as the official native English countries. Whatever color you are, your passport is more important. If one school only wants white teachers, that single school is the problem, not the government regulation. And that teacher also touched a little bit on the issue of racism when it comes to hiring teachers in China. It's true that back in the day, it's very easy for white people in general to get a teaching job in China. So it doesn't matter if you're from Italy, Germany, or Spain. If you're white, you can teach English in China. And therefore, there are a lot of native English speakers who are maybe of Asian descent or are African American, for example, who are unable to get a proper teaching job in China. However, this is something that is quickly going out of fashion because right now the government is only going to give you a permit if that person is actually from a certain number of countries. And that policy relaxed even more when they allowed people of any nationality to teach English in China as long as they have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree from a university located in an English-speaking country. So for example, if you're a Filipino or if you're any nationality and you went to the UK or the US to study for your bachelor's degree or your master's degree, then you are qualified to teach English in China. I know this sounds unfair because I know for a fact that there are a lot of good Filipino English teachers out there. However, that's just the reality of it all. If you're a Filipino, you are considered a non-native English speaker and most likely you're not going to get a job in the first-tier cities. Of course, the salary for teachers in lower-tiered cities will also be a little bit lower. However, the cost of living will also be lower and your pace of life will be so much more comfortable than in a hectic big city. Another reality, which is both good news and bad news, is that if you're a non-English or English-related or education graduate, then you might have a lower chance in getting hired as an English teacher. However, China is not only looking for English teachers. They are also looking for science, math, computer, arts teachers, and if you have a degree that is related to that, I'm pretty sure that you will still be hired even if you don't have an education background. I actually found a blog right here. It's called Kenji.me. Kenji is actually a teacher here in China right now. He's a Filipino and it's a very informative blog if you want to know more about teaching in China and how to apply for a Z visa. Another reality that you need to consider is that there are a lot of scam recruiters out there. And to protect yourself against these kinds of people, just remember this. Legitimate recruiters and agents will not ask you for a placement fee. The only thing that you really need to pay for is your visa fee. And of course, if it's your agent or recruiter who's going to process all of your personal documents for you, then that's also another fee on top of that. But asking for a placement fee is definitely a red flag, and I would not recommend that you work with an agent or a recruiter who asks you for a placement fee. The salary for English teachers in lower-tiered cities is usually from 3 to 5K. It depends on what level you're teaching as well as where exactly you're teaching. So the smaller the city and the lower the grade you teach, the lower your salary will be. And you can earn up to 11 to 12,000 RMB if you're teaching in high school or in university. If you get hired in an international school or in a private school, the salary can be up to 20,000 RMB. However, international schools and private schools also usually have higher qualifications. So sometimes they will only hire people with master's degrees, or sometimes they will only hire Filipinos if they graduated from a university in the US or the UK. Accommodation is usually free. You will either get a dormitory or an apartment all to yourself, or sometimes you can also get a rent subsidy. And of course, during the weekdays, your food like breakfast and lunch is provided by the school. The next thing I'm going to say is going to be harsh, but it's the truth. And I have debated whether or not to say this, but I mean, in the spirit of honesty and in the spirit of being as helpful as possible, I hope that you're not going to take this the wrong way. But just to give a background or a context to what I'm about to say, I actually have a friend who owns a kindergarten here in Hangzhou. So last year, she posted a job looking for English teachers for her kindergarten. And there were a lot of Filipinos who tried to apply. And because there were a lot of applicants and the names of the schools were very unfamiliar to her, she came to me and asked me information about these people. All of these applicants either had TESOL or TEFL, and all of them had bachelor's degrees. Now, it doesn't really matter. To be honest, it doesn't really matter to me what college you come from or what university you come from, because at the end of the day, it's your skill that really matters and your qualifications that really matters. However, what I noticed was, even if they had these educational backgrounds under their belts, when they filled out the online application form, which included a video introduction of themselves, I noticed that when they were speaking, there were a lot of grammar mistakes, as well as sentences or statements that were grammatically awkward. So my last advice for you, and I hope that no one takes offense, I'm just really trying to be as helpful and as no BS and factual as possible. Please do not cheat on your TESOL or your TEFL certification, and please make sure that you do have the necessary skills required when it comes to teaching English here in China. Remember that hiring Filipino teachers to teach English here in China is only a test project. And the performance of the teachers who will be hired during this phase will tell the government of China if they should continue hiring from the Philippines or not. So take your certification exams seriously. Take mastering the English language seriously. If you're already at an age when you're looking for a job, then I'm pretty sure that you should have already mastered the English language, because you probably have been exposed to the English language since you were in kindergarten. If you still have problems passing your TESOL and your TEFL exams, then you're definitely not yet ready, and you take that as a sign to work harder and to study more. Instead of pushing your luck and getting someone to help you answer your exams, especially if it's an online course, just because you don't want to study more or you don't want to redo that subject again. At the end of the day, if you're going to get your TESOL or your TEFL certificate out of honesty and hard work, then you yourself are 110% sure that you have the skills necessary to make teaching a career here in China. Moreover, if we all prove to the Chinese government that we are very good English teachers, then we indirectly help our fellow Filipinos who also want to teach in China. So master the English language and master the techniques that are needed to teach English. Make the most of your TESOL classes and come to China with the best skills you can offer to your employer as an English teacher. So I hope you don't take that the wrong way. I'm just trying to be as honest and as factual as possible, and I'm trying to tell you what the tips are to make sure that your career in China as an English teacher will not only help you but also help a lot of other teachers who want to come to China to work. So anyway, after you get your Z visa, there's one more step before you can go to China to start working, and that is to get an OEC. The OEC is the Overseas Employment Certificate, and you cannot leave the country with a work visa if you don't have an OEC. We're going to talk about how to get an OEC next Wednesday. So that's it, guys. That's our video for today. I hope that you found this video informative, helpful, and complete. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and share this to your friends who are also interested to come to China to teach. Or if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions about anything I said in this video, please don't hesitate to comment down below. Thank you for watching, guys. See you next time. Bye! 下次见!